The thing about Kyle that kills me is like he'll have some real long stretches of bad coaching. And then he'll have a game or a season where it's just so good that you're like, all right, well, clearly you're really good. Can't you just do this every week? Anyway, question for you is Kyle Shanahan still in the hot seat?
Okay, so here's the deal, right? Obviously, we went crazy last week, and we kind of
They
have
lost
all
to Colt
season.
McCoy.
They did. I agree,
It
right?
was
Like that's a big
warranted.
loss.
Yeah.
It was definitely warranted. But here's the thing. I'm not willing to backtrack anything I said based off this one win either. This one win was fantastic. And we're going to talk about, the win versus the loss here in the next topic or two. But the win was fantastic. I'm not denying that. Okay. However, let's look at the reality of the situation. The team is still under 500. The fact that they're under 500, this was the only complete game out of what? They're 4-5. So in 9 games, you've put together one complete game. I'm not willing to take my foot off the gas pedal unless one or of two things happen. They either make the playoffs or they start developing these rookies. Those are the only scenarios I'm willing to back off on the Shanahan thing. I want Shanahan to be the right guy for the team. I think it's better for Trey Lance long term if Shanahan is the right guy. Changing coaches, whether it's year 1, year 3, is never ideal. It doesn't really matter. That being said, I'm not stepping off of what I said about Shanahan based off of one game. We've got a 5-year trend here that I'm going off of. I'm not going to override that with one really good win.
He's 4-5. Look, no one was saying fire him mid-season. That's not what we're saying. When we said he's on the hot seat, we're saying, you're on notice. You have to, what you do the rest of the season will determine whether you should be the coach here next year or not. And I think John York showing up for a practice, whether he said anything or not, kind of drove that point home. Like, dude, you're on notice. Are you kidding? I had to fly out just to watch the quarterback and see this for myself. So how did Kyle Shanahan respond with a quintessential signature, great Kyle Shanahan performance? If he could do that the rest of the season, we would never talk about this kind of stuff. So is he still on the hot seat? Is he still in the hot seat? Hell yeah. And you know what? Maybe that brings out the best in him. If you remember, there was no pressure on him in the first 2 seasons because he had a 6-year contract and everyone understood he was taking over a terrible team. And people were like, give him a chance. But by the time he got to year 3, there was some, I mean, it's like, no more. This is your 3rd year and you need to show something. And I think a lot of people were kind of betting against him in year 3. I thought they'd be, I want to say 6-10. I predicted 6-10. There was that Adam Rank famously predicted what, 4-12?
I think it was
And the
3 and
Niners had this
13.
underdog mentality, like the first half of 28. Like even when they were 8-0, they were like, no one believes in us. Like, okay, you're 8-0. But that's kind of how they propelled themselves to that status. And then ever since they got to the Super Bowl, they've been saying like, no one's really been questioning them, Everyone's kind of like, you're great, you're great, you're great. And they've had a really tough time proving people right. But last week they had an opportunity to prove people wrong and they rose to the occasion. No one's questioning them right now. Now they have to go to Jacksonville and just, motivate themselves. Can they do it? I don't know.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, but it's funny, right? It's this roller coaster ride that we've gotten. And every time the 49ers win, everybody comes out and starts retweeting everything you had to say. Well, remember you said this. Do you think Jimmy sucks now? Do you think Shanahan should be fired now? It's like, chill out. Listen, this is not the flex you think it is.
I'm not trying to fire Kyle now.
Yeah.
But I want to see how he finishes the season. I mean, making it from 3-5 to 4-5, does it? I'm like, okay, like, all right, extend him just the contract. No.
right, exactly. No. Yes.
It
was a great.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's give him credit, right? This was a game where all the chips were stacked against them. Yeah. You picked them to win, right? That's fantastic. I thought they'd get 40 hung on their head and they'd get mopped. So the fact that they won was huge for this team. The game plan, by the way, phenomenal game plan paired with great execution. And we got to see the best of the 49ers this year. Let's see it a few more times before we start to crown them.
The thing about it, like, it took me until Monday morning to figure it out. Like, it hit my brain real late. But what I figured was, first of all, the loss of Robert Woods was a huge deal. There was no way that Odell Beckham Jr. was going to be ready to really fulfill that role. But also the Niners had this huge emotional advantage. No one was picking them. They were just humiliated at home by the Cardinals. It was national television Monday night. Like, they were going to have this big emotional resurgence to prove themselves. Now all that's gone. They did it. Everyone says they're back. They're good. This is the team we expected. They're going to the playoffs. They're going to beat the Jaguars. They're back in the position they were in 2 weeks ago, where everyone was like, well, they're going to beat the Cardinals. I mean, it's Colt McCoy. So now they're back in that spot where Kyle has to motivate them. It's not the emotions of the circumstance. It's Kyle saying, we have a freaking standard. Oh, it's Jacksonville? Doesn't matter. They're 2-2 in their last 2 games. We need to play a certain way every week. He hasn't been able to do that. So if he could do that this week, that would go a long way to showing that he's a legit head coach. I'm not saying he's not, but that's the next step, winning a second game in a row. And I think everyone would agree they probably freaking should beat the Jaguars. So do it. You should have beaten the Cardinals.
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. They should win the game. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but maybe it's not as cut and dry as what people think it is.